master we have with us today, who has woven magic through his work. I was introduced to him when I moved to Delhi in 1982 from Hyderabad, which was a small town then, and I was a small town girl, still in class 10, when I was held in thrall by all that was happening for the Asian Games. And yes, I saw the Asian Games village. Then, of course, I joined architecture and was introduced to Virandil girders through the STC building. I also had the privilege of being gifted a book by Mr. Rewal when I visited his office after becoming an architect, and of course, much after becoming an architect, after the launch of Acumen. I'm not even sure he remembers that. The first live session of the series is by none other than architect Raj Rewal, one of the most loved architects in India. In today's session, architect Raj Rewal will share lessons from his projects on low-cost housing and his journey as an architect. Over to you, sir. Look forward to being mesmerized.
Okay, thank you for your kind words. Okay, so do you want me to start now?
Yes, sir. You can begin.
Okay.
Aishwarya, would you like to share screen? Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, yes.
So, we have passed through in the last 2-3 months, very difficult period in India, but it also brings us some images of migrant workers, which are very poignant, very painful to see, and also shows us that maybe we have failed miserably. I'm not talking about sociologically, but from architectural, town planning, urban design point of view, that a vast majority of our compatriots have lived in such misery and in such a way. So I would really start with the low-cost housing project I had done in Mumbai many years ago. Charles Correa, very good friend, sort of nudged me to do this housing. I think many other architects quietly walked away because this was a housing done for 1 room, 2 room units, believe it or not, from 200 square feet, 20 square meters to 35 square meters was the largest numbers. And it was to be done in Navi Mumbai, which was a there was nothing there. So I think Laurie Baker quietly said, oh, I don't do this kind of thing or something. So the others were also, okay, what can be 2 rooms, 3 rooms? So anyway, I said, all right, I take it on. They said, Charles said, oh, you know how to do housing very well. You've done Asian Game Village. So he instigated me to getting into this project. And so before I start doing any project, I look at what are the precedents, what has been done earlier, what can be done now to improve it, etc. So I actually went to see the Chawls of Bombay. I went through Dharvi, which was quite an experience, and how to make housing which would be sort of credible in a way on a totally new side. In fact, the engineering consultant I had was also involved, his name, Shirish Patel, was also involved a little bit about Navi Mumbai as a whole project. So I said to him something which can also maybe perhaps replicated slum areas of Bombay, maybe because, so that's the way we started. See some images of Navi Mumbai. Now, this is the first image, and as you can see, the aim was, it's on a hillock, and the aim was that the housing should really merge with the side. This has been a major consideration for many work, that the context is very important. Next image. Okay, as you can see, the palette of the colors actually sort of almost whatever is there. So this is the kind of a cluster I started working on, because in our office we work basically very much with the models. And as you can perhaps see, these are we'll see in some of the plans later on. But these are really two-room units, or maybe just one-room units, which are combined on the ground floor four, and on the first floor two, and on the third floor. Then, so everybody gets a courtyard and a terrace. That was the idea. Next image. Okay, you can see the plan there. I think if you can remove this, these are just two ground floor. And but what gave me a lot of pleasure, as well as which was a lot of problematic thing, how to create spaces around this building, because we wanted it to be really like a nice, perhaps the old mahallas or the places of urban cities, which so they can sort of meet each other. So in a way, we created the internal spaces, which are very, let's say, important part of the design. Next. Ashwarya, next. I can do it. So these are really two-room units which are combined together, and you can see the plans of different kind of. So these are really as molecules which are combined. Can you go back to the earlier image? Ashwarya, are you hearing me? No.
Yes, sir, I can
Okay,
hear
you
you,
can
sir.
see.
I think this is because of the internet lag that you are not able to see maybe. So now it will be fine.
Oh, so it takes a few seconds. So as you can see, this is a sort of image. Uh, let's say this is a 2 or 3 story house. There's a courtyard ground below for the individuals and a roof terrace above, and a common passage which runs through the whole scheme. Now that's another image, as you can see. So as you can, I wanted very rough, uh, let's say, uh, that's a rough uh, render on the project, but defined with ceramic tiles. So I thought even if there's a lot of rain and all sorts of things which goes on and nobody repairs it, that it should look good after, let's say, few years. So that was the idea. Next. As you can see, the space in between are very important. And there's another type, slightly higher level, maybe I think 2.5 rooms. You can see the series of gateways which run through this passage. Another thing, though, I think they were probably standard units, but I didn't want to have a repetitive units, which is what a lot of architects, planners, and others do. Ek do dafa bana, you make one or two and it's a broken record. I wanted it very different. So it's like going through a small town that you enjoy walking through, and it's different. Next. So you can see the sequence of spaces within the site are what makes it very, different in a way. But it was done within the price range. Next. You can see the gates. This is the small thing. Some of the monsoons in Bombay, anything grows. And this is probably just after the units were built. Next. And few sketches of these buildings around how I was trying to conceive it. And is the ceramic tiles which acted as a band. So even if it was becoming dirtier, I thought it would still have some architectural character to it. Okay. very functional things have to be beautiful. But I'm showing you this is an image from Seoul, which they have done low-cost housing there. And this is the worst kind of thing which I thought should not be done. Yeah. And so when I'm showing all this, I'm showing this as something which may solve the problem, but it's really inhuman and very painful to live in a box in which everybody lives in exactly the same box. Next. Next image, please. So as you can see, space is very important in all our projects, for all architects projects, but especially very large projects. And I'm showing this image of Fatehpur Sikri. Now, when I was let's say, looking after the Festival of India, I was actually the curator of the exhibition. So we had measured Fatehpur Sikri. Many architects were involved in measuring it and putting it together. All these drawings were done in our office. And you can see the lessons learned from it, how to join buildings together, how you move from one building to the other, seems to have influenced me. And I hope all of you probably go to Fatehpur Sikri to seek a certain kind of how rich our architectural heritage has been. Next. Ashwarya, you can go a little faster. Now, I come immediately to a very different kind of work to show the space. Now, in this case, the space is of the Parliament Library building. There are 3 courtyards within it, and that's the kind of space. So the space sort of binds all the different the architecture together. Next. Now, this is a totally different thing. This is the university in Rohtak. Both of these are Google images. So you can of the project. Maybe you can go to the Google and see it a bit more carefully than we are showing it here. But these are 4 different institutes, all with their own, etc. They're all bound together. Oh, they're all bound together with a central library auditorium, and the top of it, what we call is this slanting wheel. We'll talk about it later. Next. These are the tools. These are the tools by which we started with how this is the Lisbon Ismaili Cultural Center, and this is the structural element which defines a kind of a jali, if you like, and but it's built with granite and stainless steel. It's woven together, and it gives way to the courtyard within the scheme. Next. But so the structure is a very important element, and how we define the structure to make the building is what gives it the thing. Because the structures which you've seen from inside, the structural theme of it, as it's seen from its interior. Next. Next. This is the structure, the roof of the Parliament Library. So as I've been saying, for all of us, our tools are structure, light, space, and these are the elements with which we actually make our building. Next. Here is a much more delicate web of stainless steel cables which tie up the whole thing. And now recently, and very recently, but it has always been at the back of my mind, is sustainability, or as used to call it, microclimate within the building. So you see some of the projects where we have incorporated photovoltaic panels. So you will see these photovoltaic panels. This is a model design, and you can see the entire complex for Coal India in Calcutta is built on these ideas. And when you use photovoltaic panels, they need not be put at the last thought on the roof, but also integrated as a major element of design. And that's what I've been trying to do. I think in the next 10 years for architects, when photovoltaic panels become quite cheap, this will be a major element of design. Next. Next. Now, this is the atrium where you see in the atrium of the Indian Embassy in Beijing, where we have very delicate web of stainless steel, but within it are the photovoltaic panels, which supposed to light up the interior and keep it lit in the night also. Next. Next. I do that. Can you see me when I do that? Okay. Now this is the Rohtak University, as you can see, panels all around the building, and about 15 to 20% of the energy to be used in the complex are generated by the panels. We avoided in all of these projects I have done the battery, because the power generated goes directly into the system and then it lights up. So it saves a lot of money. But I think now the batteries which are being suggested or which have been built are also very powerful. And I think it can be enough power generation. But in the next 10 years, I hope that we may have the entire cities entirely based on photovoltaic panels, recyclable systems, etc. Next. Now, another thing is the materiality and craft. And here again, I think in India, we have a tremendous potential. You will see in these projects, we have used particularly sand, which is basically, essentially, very much in India, Indian material, North India particularly. And you will see a lot of projects which are built based on the craft, not stone, but also concrete and brick. So the how exactly a material with which you build, it becomes a very important feature of the design. Okay, next. You can see the use of sandstone, how it's woven. I've used small panels of sandstone because this is the first building where I used the red sandstone in a big way, and the idea was that the sandstone, in a way, is used in a different manner, in an altogether different manner than what it had ever been utilized. But of course, lessons were learned from the past. Next. That's another, you can see the beige color of sandstone. This is in our project in Kartarpur in Punjab. We have used the white color sandstone, which runs around, and you can see it forms a very important feature of the whole building. Next. So that's another use of sandstone in a different manner in the Parliament building. It's a little bit more monumental in a way, as you can see. Yeah. Next. Now, as I said, all these things, materiality, craft, structure, space, light, these are the tools, but how to have a certain kind of rasa or spirit or specific ambience on very large works. Because in the last couple of years, we've been very much involved in the works which I would call large universities and what I would call epic works. Now, this was very important part of my thinking. what I call Rasa, the ambient. Now, this is the central hall of the Parliament Library. I wanted a certain kind of light within the building because I thought the idea of enlightenment, the library should enlighten, and it should light up all the 4 floors down below. And so this is what we designed. So in this case, there is both structure, light, and space to create a certain kind of rasa or ambience. Next. Okay. Now, this is a totally different project. This is in Lisbon. And this is the roof of a church in Lisbon, Jeronimo. And I was very intrigued, started designing our the sculpture Ismaili Center in Lisbon. So I hope some of the ideas steep into our work. Now, this is of course very high, as it's called by the followers of the Aga Khan. So I designed it that the roof is important, and at the same time, it's very much roof structure built on the, let's say, in a manner which takes full advantage of what was potentially possible structurally. You have small domes which are prefabricated and with in situ stone, which is uh, partly shuttered, and that becomes question. Next. You can see the steel. Next image. Now, as you can see, this is there was a wonderful image from the which moved very quickly, which was from the Adinath temple in Gujarat. Now we go to again very quickly this image. You can see the quality of light. I don't know if you can see me on the image. I can't pinpoint, but all these small domes are lifted up. So I think we have to, the light in and the ambience, how it will sort of create a sort of ambience. That was, or the rasa, that's important lesson learned from here. Next. I hope some of you have seen the Asian Game Village. It's much more messed up than these images, but you can see I was trying the project in which there is a complete difference between pedestrian and the vehicular movement. So you can move around from one end to the other end, and every apartment, there are of course individual units, but also apartment. Everybody has their own courtyard or roof terrace, etc. Next. Next image. Oh, anyway, you can see the images in between, how it used to be. There's a far more trees and plants grown, which make it better. And a little bit more messed up also looking thing. Next. Okay, next image. Next image. I think I'll go over all the other things once we have completed part of the main. Next image. I think the idea of roof terraces and the gateways become very important feature of the whole design. Next. Now, to my inspiration from Jaisalmer, the narrow shade. Next. Also, the entire Jaisalmer, which I hope some of you or most of you should visit. This is the plan of the Asian Game Village. The shaded areas, uh, uh, the gray areas are the pedestrian pathways which run through the entire building. Next. Oh, I would. Now we show another housing which is very different in character. This is for the British High Commission. There's a lot more money and much more, but we use sandstone there, and you'd see how it works out. But the principal ideas are often the same, of central courtyard or central open space between everybody having their own courtyard and roof terrace, etc. Next. I talk about other things once we have completed part of the presentation, because otherwise no, I don't find a problem with the, in fact, I try to keep the palette or the, as you call it, or the, in this case, sandstone of one color, so that the scheme is unified very well. And you know, I mean, and the volumes and all that, which are a bit more than lively, in case chhatris, balconies, uh, uh, protruding elements, etc. Next. You can see the greenery, use of red stone, and the definition for the pathway. Okay, we'll get back to the discoveries of my work. Well, I think the way I look at it is look back. If you want to know about that, uh, uh, I think the major thing is I started at the very beginning that all buildings should have a permanent finish. And even for the cheapest quality of work which I've done, we have used either rendering of, let's say, uh, uh, grid finish, or even for the in Bombay, even the rough cast plaster. So it should look well after 25 years. So that, and some of the buildings do look, even once the plantation comes up, even better. So that has been a major consideration for me. And the other one, of course, is I think we want to enrich the life of the people who use our buildings. And I have gone back sometimes, and, and sometimes I have been, people living there seem to compliment me. There was a young lady who said, I was brought up entirely on your project in the NII, which you probably will see. And so that's a very good feeling. Okay, next. Well, I use sandstone very much, it's true. But there are two reasons. In my first building, I used brick and concrete as a kind of modernistic approach, a truth to the material. But whenever I started using air-conditioned building, I thought we need an extra insulation. And And let's say if sandstone is used on the surface, there is an insulation, extra insulation. So for air conditioning building, it makes a lot of difference. And also, sandstone is a material particularly, I think, very valid.
We've lost you, Mr. Rewal. If we can just wait for the connectivity to come back.
Okay, so we'll come back in 5 minutes.
Yes, we are taking a 5-minute break. Yes. So we are restarting the modem from Architect Rewal's end, and we hope that the connectivity will be better.
Just we all stay in and wait,
Yes.
right? So now the rest.
Yes. All the participants, thank you for your patience.
Can see the sort of little balconies and the manner they have been used to create a bit of shade because how to shade the building themselves to create a bit of microclimate and to do it in a manner that the whole building has a slightly, if I may use the words, sculptural quality. Next. Very carefully in all of our works, we work out the details to a great extent. Our internet connection is unstable again. So what do we do?
We just take our time. It's okay. If you're okay with it, we just take our time, and when I'll keep warning you.
Just talk then.
No, if it's okay, I'll just keep telling you when there is a bit of a lag, and you could repeat what you're saying. If that's okay with you, then we can just go ahead.
Okay. You continue. Okay, so I continue as it is?
Please go ahead. We can hear you. Thanks.
Okay, so let's go ahead. Maybe we can just do question answers, or we carry on with images and then talk.
No, we go ahead as it is, sir, right now.
Okay.
And I'll let you know in case there's a problem.
Okay. So Aishwarya, if you can start the images again.
So can you see now? Can you see the images?
I can see, yes.
Okay, sir.
I mean, you start the image.
Okay, sir.
Next slide. Next slide. Now, here's the Parliament building, and this is almost an image which sums up the whole attitude, how to be, let's say, to resonate with the existing Parliament, how to be different with it, and how to use structure and materials in a way. So we'll see it here. You know, when Latiers was designing this complex, he has said on record that he wanted to show superiority of Western art, science, and culture. So in a way, I wanted to do something which was different, but at the same time, which has a resonance with it. And I took the idea that the Parliament Library is going to be the guru to the existing Parliament because it's to the existing Parliament because after all, it's the guru which teaches. So that was an analogy in my mind. And as you can see how we go through that. Next. You can see the interior spaces within the library. There are 3 different courtyards, and I wanted the ideas of the Indian democracy, you know, the idea of social justice, equality for all. So each courtyard in a way represent one of these values. I don't know how it works out for the MPs, but that's what was in my mind. Next. Ashwarya, keep running faster. This is the library, and you can see there's a different kind of structure. There's another passage as you go through the building, how you see the greenery, small courtyard plantation. Okay, you can see the central space, which is in a way becomes very important element of the entire design. Next. You can see the building plan, series of courtyards and circular external volumes, which in a way resonate with the existing circular building of the parliament. Next. Next. This is the temple. Why I'm showing it here is what inspired me in a way, because then what showing off your contemplating, and that was what was the sort of main parliament library. You can see the spaces between it, and all the corridors overlook the interior courtyards, and very, in a way, different, but also resonating with the parliament at the rear. Perhaps very challenging work at that stage. And the roof of the library is almost designed as a garden, and I think it's still well maintained. And one sort of the idea that the whole thing, in a way, the bit below the or in the columns of the existing library. Next. Okay. We'll come back to the answer. Now, this is the Lisbon Center, right? I've already talked about it a little bit, but you can see very quickly the basic sort of, let's say, from above, that these are sort of almost 6 courtyards, 3 on the ground and 3 on the first floor. And you go through from one space to the other. So the transition from one area to the other defines the mood of the people who are within the buildings. Next. Okay. Okay, next you can see a little bit of the images, and then we come back to the question and answers after another 5 minutes. So let's run through this very quickly.
Aishwarya, I think he wants you to run through the images.
In a way. So
yeah.
Water. Yes, can you rush through, please? Oh, my internet connection is unstable again, they say. Okay, you can see the kind of drawings which we had done to capture the mood of what we wanted to do. Is almost okay. Okay, I come back to the idea why we use courtyards and the domes in these buildings. There you see the interior of the project, the light, and you know, in the Indian Islamic architecture, the main hall is very closely tied to the courtyard, and I wanted this in a slightly different manner to achieve the same thing. This is the prayer hall or the Jamaat Khana. Next. Oh, okay. We do this project and then we finish and then question answer. Okay, this is very, I think this is a project very accessible to anyone. You just have to ask our office and you can come and see it. And exceptionally well maintained, something to be said for the Indian scientific community. And so let's say there is a central courtyard and there is a series of housing clusters which have their own identity and a courtyard. And as you can see, I think I'll come back to the question answers a little later. Okay, next.
Yeah, I will ask you the questions clubbed together. Don't worry, sir.
Okay.
Just carry on.
Okay. So here are very different clusters. So my challenge was how each building should be different, but also harmonized with each other. So they look part of one ensemble, but also they are different. So this is the way I achieved by having the same kind of stone gray pink and sort of harmonizing with the sort of having the same palette, if you like, for every building. Next. Okay, let's carry on. Okay, you can see very quickly. I hope most of you have seen NII, but this is the housing clusters. Okay, you can see the plan of the whole housing. Next. Next. You can see this is the second phase of the same NII, and then we will go over it inside, how the space progresses from one side to the other. Now, we are very lucky that now the landscape has really come up. Actually, I was very lucky to have Shahid, Mohammed Shahid, as our consultant for this project. And some of the ideas we discussed very well. And I think the plants have sort of really, plants and the buildings are very closely threaded together. Next. You can see the details. Do you want to see this? Okay, one more project, I think, because that changes the there are no domes here, as you can see. In this case,
We're ready to listen to you for however long you can speak, sir.
So, so these we get back to the problem, but you can see here we have used photovoltaic panels as a major element of design. And actually speaking, the solar disk, as I would call it, slanting one above the auditorium and the library, in a way, kind of symbolizes, some people have called it the Buddhist Dharma Chakra, others have called it the Konarak Wheel Temple. So the symbols can be read in any way you like, but in my point, it was structurally very strong way, a wheel and photovoltaic panels to generate enough power and electricity, as I said in the beginning, for the entire project. One or two more images, and Shurya, then we can go back to question answers. Okay. Oh, I think I'm just showing other universities. I think you can run through very quickly. Sanji, these sort of inspirations, as I call them, or reference points in my thinking. You can see the spaces within this is the art school. How do you find your flaws? I don't know. Next, this is the plan. So let's say these are the sections of the building. Next thing, these are the views. This is within same complex, very different amphitheater in a way, which is a glass roof, but it's very well ventilated. They didn't want the rain, but they said, okay, as long as we have circulation, we'll be quite happy with it. Next. You can see the sunken courtyard where your professor can talk to you in a more informal manner. Next. That's my favorite image of this project. That's from the, let's say you see from the interior of the Design Institute for toward this courtyard. Here it sums up in a way, there's a microclimate and how the internal and external volume volumes are synchronized together or threaded together. Aishwarya, then we built this one or two more images. Net connection is unstable again. So shall we stop here?
We can hear you, don't worry, sir. These are the last few images, sir.
Okay, we continue then. You can see these images of light. Now, light is the most difficult for an architect to imagine in his work. You can imagine everything else, but how the light penetrates your building, how it sort of gives a different life to your materials, to your spaces and all that. Even after so many years of work, I have never been able to fully, let's say, imagine it. But when you see it, it's a real, in a way, very satisfying pleasure to see how things have turned out. Next. Oh, this is a fashion design studio inside, almost to the same level as the equivalent to the professional level anywhere else in the world. You can see the lights and all that. Some of you have one day a fashion show here. Okay, next. Carry on.
So this is the last
Oh,
image.
these are this is the last image. So you can see the structure of it and the section you have seen and how we conceptualize the whole project. And this is the dominant feature. I think now you can begin to ask questions. Is that right, Geeta?
Sure.
Okay. Okay.
So, I think that was quite a fascinating journey for us to see, visual journey for us to see the range of projects that you've been. I mean, I know there's a lot more that you could have shown us, but of course we have only an hour to see what the highlights are. So I have a few questions. There are questions coming continuously out here, but I'll begin by asking you. Today's generation, we see people connected so much. We're talking right now online. There are youngsters who can surf the net. There's so much inspiration, case studies, influences, etc., that they can gain from. When you began, it would have been pretty much like a clean slate. Was it lonely? How was it when you started your career? There's somebody called Nirupama and many others who've asked how you what were the challenges you faced when you began and how you overcame them. So if you can spend a little time telling us about that.
Well, I think as a student, let's say, we were lucky to have, maybe we were lucky not to have internet in some respect. So we could actually go and see the buildings. And it used to be, I started at the School of Planning and Architecture in Delhi. We had very good professors. There was Professor Chapala, then there was Professor Fabri, who could teach us about art, history, etc. But the main thing they encouraged was actually to go and be in the building. I remember going with Professor Chapala, 26 or 30 of us. We stayed there for 3 days there. Sleeping and with Jhabala and they sleeping in the same room, carrying on conversation and discussion. So I think the best way to learn architecture is maybe internet can be a little help. I'm not saying, but actually by seeing the buildings, whether it's historical, traditional or modern or all over the world, anywhere. And I think that's one thing that you absorb the best, because you see our tools, as I said, are the drawing by which we imagine, models we make, etc. But actually it's in our mind and to visualize buildings. And when I'm designing, I see, oh yes, when I'm designing, I'm thinking of Mosque at Gulbarga when I was doing the Lisbon Center, or when I was doing the Parliament building, I was thinking of the Adinath temple I had done seen in Ronakpur. So these are images which come in your mind. I don't know, they're expressed in different manners. So that's one thing. I don't know. The other challenge, of course, is like everybody else, you have to get through the whole architectural educational systems and define for yourself what you wish to do.
How is your architecture evolved over time? When you started, I'm sure it would have been in a particular way, and over time, how has it moved?
Well, I think very difficult to define, but there is a very nice conversation with Ramin Jahanbegloo is an Iranian philosopher, and is the book with him called Talking Architecture is in third edition. It's a paperback, so it's quite cheap. I think students can buy that, I hope.
Could you repeat the name of the book, sir?
Well, you see, it's called Talking Architecture, Oxford University Press.
I'm just typing it here.
I think it's the third edition. And so, no, I think it defines very well in some, let's say I started as a modernist in a way, which means truth to the material, using structure in a manner which is shown on the surface of the building. So let's say my first building was done for the French embassy where my wife worked. We always have first connection through our relatives and friends to do a building. And I did the housing low cost for their chaprasis. And there was very little money. And I designed everything, brick, concrete. I was my own draftsman and everything. And I'm very happy to say this has been acquired by the Museum of Modern Art in New York for their exhibition as a permanent collection. So in a way, it paved the way how I was thinking. I've seen Jaisalmer, etc. It has small courtyard within it. So that's the way, brick and concrete and respect to the craft of building. That's very important. And I tell students now that, unless your buildings are built well, and you will become the slaves of the contractors. Or you will become, so you have to learn the craft of your building better than anything else. Okay.
An interesting question from a young lady called Sandra,
yes.
Who says, does the eye guide architecture? Does architecture guide the eye?
Can you repeat that one?
Does the eye guide architecture, or does architecture guide the eye? I mean, you showed that beautiful frame of the building, which you said you loved, in your presentation of that courtyard.
I think it's both way. It's a conversation. I don't think it can be this or that. It's really a jugal business. It's a continuous process of a conversation, how your eye looks at buildings and how the building become part of it. So that's the only way I can answer this question.
So there are a couple of people, 3 or 4 of them, who asked about after 73 years of independence, how important is the national identity through architecture? How do we protect our heritage? And what is your vision for the future of Indian architecture in India? Is it something that we look at the past, or do we move in with technology into the future? How do you navigate?
Well, I have always believed that we have to build with the time, build for our time. And so the heritage and tradition can only be an inspiration. I have always told students, you cannot marry your grandmother. And, it's very important that you carry forward some of the values which you have learned from the past and to solve the problems of today. And the problems of today can keep changing. In fact, when I had started our architectural practice 50 years ago, is very different from then what it is today. I see somebody else. Yes, please ask your question.
So you were talking about the vision and the future of architecture. A lot of discussions have been happening on the Central Vista project. There's a question here as well. The Parliament Library is a landmark project really when it happened. You would definitely have studied this area closely while designing the library, and having been part of Delhi for so many years over time. What do you have to say on the project that's being proposed? What are your views?
Well, I think I would be, first of all, I have really not seen the project.
No,
And
on the intent to change
the one thing which upset me very much was the way the competition was done, because it had limited it to somebody who had earned so much, who had so much computers or something like that. And I think this is absurd. It's never been done in the history of anywhere in the world, that architects are invited based on the amount of money they have earned or the basis of how many implements, etc. they had. You see, normally architectural competitions are done based on a very thorough program established by the client, let's say. In this case, there was no program. So that's, or I'll go no further than that, because I've not seen the project, and because I think to be critical for doesn't make much of the project. But I think the process has been, and I think Divya Kush, the president of the Indian Institute of Architects, had written a letter which should be seen by everybody. I think that sums up what went wrong.
So that brings me to another painful moment in your career, which was the Hall of Nations. How do you think that development has to happen, things have to move on? What are the other options that could have been adopted, maybe? Because that's something we grew up with. That's something that was a symbol of Delhi in a sense.
Well, all I can say is that the people who did it, or the establishment which carried it out, they are Philistines, they're culturally deprived and architecturally illiterate, because not only 5,000 architects from within India had said to preserve it, but also the curators of the 3 museums from the world, like Museum of Modern Art, Pompidou Museum in Paris, even from Hong Kong, and most prominent architects of India like Doshi and everybody pleaded, please keep this building intact. It's a very important project. It's part of the history, modern history. So I think it's very painful. And I think it's very important for the younger architects to understand that we have to fight for our rights, to be in a position of power, that we can dictate situations. You see, let's say the way I look at it, the legal profession takes care of its prerogatives. Even accountants and people from doctors, everybody takes care of their positions, profession. We are somehow, let's say, treated like dirt sometimes. And I think the young professionals will have to fight to establish their rights.
Yeah, I'm going to ask Poonam, maybe the ASH team can help unmute Poonam. She has a question on, I'd like her to ask the question on revisiting and redesigning your project. What would be the thing that you'd like to change? Is Poonam here?
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, Poonam, would you like to ask your question?
I've seen your presentations before and I love your buildings. There's just one question which I would like to ask you is, if at this point in time you had to revisit your design and redo some of the works, if you get to do that, what would be one thing that you would want to change?
Oh dear. I have not thought much about that. Okay, what I would like to change. First of all, I cannot change anything what is done. You see, this is one of the problems of the architects or building. A painter can still adjust his paintings, or a writer can rub a few pages and rewrite. We cannot change what we have done. So we have to do whatever we do with great responsibility. And quite frankly speaking, what I would like to do, honestly speaking, I wouldn't like to change much. of what I have done. I mean, not that I'm satisfied with 100% with whatever I have done, but as I have no choice, and so in a way, I find this question intriguing, but the answer is really, I don't know.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thanks, Poonam. I'm also going to ask the team to unmute Apurv, whose question is on the Asian Games Village and the housing project in Mumbai. If we're getting into some specifics on the project, if
Okay,
Apurv
most
can be
welcome.
unmuted.
Yeah, hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
So my question is basically towards housing projects. These days, like
Yes.
I'm studying sustainable architecture right now, and I would like to ask you, at the time when you were designing, how deeply was the concept of passive design embedded in your designs to make sure the buildings were free running and independent of any external air conditioning?
Well, I have, let's say, often given reference to Jaisalmer. I've often given reference to Jaisalmer. I've been there and couple of times, or at least one or two times. And when I was designing the Asian Game Village, I was thinking of it, and also other cities of Rajasthan. That even at such a high temperature, when you go through schools and the texture of city is built in such a manner that there is microclimate, there's a ventilation, people meet each other also, but all the same, so it's very lively to at ambience. That's what I wanted to create there. So that was what was with my mind when I was designing the thing. And not only in India, but also, in the Renaissance city in Italy, you see the same kind of characteristics.
Thank you,
Okay.
Apurv. There are many questions on the geometry of your buildings. And I remember when we were discussing what you would present, there is another presentation altogether on the geometry of your buildings itself, which would be, I think the students and the young architects here would do well in probably studying the geometry of your buildings a little more deeply. But maybe you can reflect on how you choose the geometry, why, and maybe the question that's come up also is on why domes. So if you could, why domes on so many of your buildings? If you could also speak on that.
I think there's a lag on his
Yeah,
end.
we'll
Let
just
me
wait
just
for
get
it.
in touch with the team there.
Structurally sound, then the geometry becomes very important. But it's not geometry in itself and humane spaces. So as you see in my geometrical, what you call geometrical solutions, there is always a scope of a lot of open spaces within it. Are we getting connected, interconnected?
We can hear you. We can hear you.
Okay, so I think, so let's say, I hope I have asked. So structure is bound together geometrically. I mean, I've used curves, I think, particularly in the last particular project, and generally speaking, I think palette and the geometrical.
Sorry, you may have to repeat yourself. You may have to repeat yourself a little bit, sir, there.
Which allows is that kind of sculpturous potential. Hello, yes. This
Yeah, could you just repeat the
business.
part? Repeat the part on the last part that you said was certainly not very clear. The geometry, the sculpturous part. It allows the geometry allows.
About the geometry.
Yeah.
You see, let's say if you start with a simple geometry, then you can elaborate on it for surface or volumes and spaces. So it's a guiding principle, and that's how I use. I'm not very conscious of the geometrics of my own buildings. I'm conscious much more of the total volume of spaces which are within it. And but we work very much on models in our office, and the plans comes a little bit later on. So that's the way we go about it.
So have you ever been influenced by any South Indian historical architecture is what someone has asked.
Well, Padmanabhapuram, it's one of my favorite buildings, and we had measured it, and we have drawn it in our office, and I visited it twice, and because South, particularly Kerala, is very rich in a very different manner. It's based on wooden architecture, historically speaking, and the buildings are very closely related with landscape and let's say, I think the few other South Indian temples. Actually, when I was a student, I think when I was a professor, we went around measuring, I think, Madurai, which is a tremendous effort. We never published it, but the temple, Madurai, Tanjore, which, what is the temple's name? Very difficult. Kona.
Brihadishwara temple in Tanjavur, is that what you're talking
No,
about?
that was Ganga Kodai, whatever his name.
Gangai Konda Chola. Next to
That's right. The name is fantastic temple. The name is very difficult for me to pronounce, but I think it's an amazing architecture. And also, of course, I've been twice to the whole city which was destroyed, Vijayanagar. And so, in a way, I think the South Indian temples need to be studied a little bit more deeply because they are the center of the whole city. You can't imagine the whole city of Madurai without this temple. So I think as a part of urban design, architecture, movement from one place to the other, there's a lot to be learned from there.
Since from geometry, we can move to materials and tell us about your choice of stone and the different colors of stone that you've been using. There are a lot of questions on that as well. If you can just dwell on why stone, how do you decide which stone to use and so on, and when it should be tough concrete?
To tell you the truth, the money dictates a lot of things, you see, and my first building, which I used the stone, which I wanted very much to use, was Central Institute of Education and Technology, if you get a chance to see it. And I had a lot of time to work on it, a lot of time, many years it was. The project was delayed and this and that, but I was determined to use sandstone and red sandstone, and which was cheaper than the white sandstone in those days. And so working on it and to develop a vocabulary, I worked with the craftsmen a little bit and also learn from them, and that the size of stone, what was the cheapest available in the market. So we went through a lot of very, as you say, theoretical thinking, establishing from cost point of view, and to develop a vocabulary in a material which has not been used in the modern architecture at all before I did it, in a way. I think. Uh, so I had to relearn everything for myself and to devise everything in a very new manner, so to speak. As a stone, as a cladding material, how to bind it with concrete, how to bind or not to bind it with the concrete. So that was a tremendous challenge. And once having learned that, then let's say later building used what I learned there in a different manner. And let's say by the time did the World Bank building or the British housing, there was a little more money available. And you have to see that the institutional building were done in the same price. Actually, CPWD was doing this building, and I had to be within it, the same. Uh, so the cost consideration had were very carefully considered.
So you talked about cost being, a deciding factor as well. Someone has asked this question on how do you ensure your client is happy, and I said I was almost answering there, saying he's Raj Rewal, his client would be happy, but I'm sure you would have faced
So
issues.
how to make your clients happy is very difficult. One of my first building was for my mother and my wife, etc. and and I had to do what I wanted to do, but also to fulfill it functionally. Functionally is very important, and we have to carry the people with you in it, and also slowly built up a little bit of confidence between you. I mean, I remember a very different building, which the Coal India office building, let's say. The client was,
In my
chair,
city.
huh?
In my city.
In your city, yes.
Right now seems to be facing a storm once again. I can hear the winds blowing our windows apart just now. So keeping my fingers crossed. Yeah. Go ahead,
So,
sir.
you know, the client was the chairman or director, whatever you call them, of the Coal India Limited. Very well, very nice Bhadrapurush, as you call them in Bengal. Very well literate, very. So before I designed, I had a meeting. I said, "What is your organization, and what are the functional aspects? But what is the image which you wish to?" So he said, "We deal with power, and I want a building which shows a new way of using the power. Perhaps you can think about it or something. I leave it to you." So when I designed, actually, I was thinking about the sun and how to embrace the sun. That's the word I've used somewhere. And sundials of Jantar Mantar, etc., etc. That's how it was in my mind. But at the same time, the building program was meticulously sought. They had offices, then their auditorium, and another thing, canteen, usual office thing, but I had to do it in a manner that I sort of uh, gave, carried this message that let's do the power with solar energy. And I think he was very happy. Our client was very happy about it. He didn't interfere very much, and in this manner, I'm having a little water.
Please do, sir. That's indeed a profound lesson on how a client's a one word or one sentence brief gets translated into what we see as the Coal India building today. I think, getting
right.
to see those insights into how you planned it and how you thought of it is very interesting.
Then you also read about they give you their about their organization a little bit, so you have a little absorb all that. The other client, which was very interesting, was for the DMRC. This was a project which I was directly employed. I didn't have to do competition. Most of my projects were given to me after competitions, winning. But here was Sridhar, and he interviewed me, or we had a chat, and he came directly to the point. If you give this much fees, we can't give you more than that. We know you'll kind of take much more. So would you like to work for us on this fees? So this was quite a challenge. I had never accepted fees less, etc. So I said, we do original thinking and we evolve and cost a lot of money, etc. He said, no, this is it. So I said, all right, but you tell me uh, what you have in mind for your building. He said, why do I engage an architect if I have? He was very frank about all that. But he said, we would like to do a building which is very high tech, high technology, which is established because we run a high technology, our our train systems and all that based on that. So we would like an image of that kind. And I think we manage building is very different from ours. We use materials of glass and steel and granite, which is different from that's a sandstone building which we were doing, I think, and establish a different image.
Nice. Yeah. So that brings me to a question that's raging today with the COVID pandemic, which is why we are speaking in this manner. How do you think? I mean, I love Sindhu Karuras, if she's here. She's articulated her question rather well. So maybe nice to unmute Sindhu and ask her to.
Okay, yes, hello. My name is Sindhu, and I had a question about that. As we are experiencing today this whole pandemic and this situation, so what would be the role of architect? Okay, so
I think she's saying that social distancing is becoming the new normal.
yes.
And while architects were always supposed to connect, we are now kind of being told to distance people. So how will our public amenities like gullies, cricket grounds, the gully cricket that people play, how are all these things going to really change in the next?
Well, first of all, I hope it passes. It doesn't remain. We can't remain in prison forever. Now the question is this situation going to change your architecture, urbanism, city planning? I've thought about it. I think in the last 50 years we have made some very serious mistakes as a country, and I gave an interview to somebody about it. I wish, Gandhi had talked about a village which was self-sufficient. Now, many people would not agree. Nobody wants to live in a village, and anyway, the village cannot contain so many people. So, what I was thinking was, and that was thinking not only mine, but many other town planners, much when we started work here that they should be smaller cities, which are based on, let's say, university town, hospitals, industry, schools, and which became self-sufficient in themselves in a way. And of course, industry has to be aligned so they get employment opportunities there, rather than everybody coming to the mega city and making, mega cities now have reached a limit. As we have seen, Maharashtra has the maximum number of problems. Delhi, I'm sure Calcutta as well, not to talk about Bangalore. So there's a limit. A city has a holding capacity, and all these cities have gone beyond that. So I hope now we rethink what our cities can be. And also with internet, particularly, we can live in smaller towns, we can communicate very much with each other, and we need not be part of traffic which is causing so much pollution, etc. So I would like to imagine that one of your younger planners, architects, in 10 years time designs a city which is based on, let's say, entirely photovoltaic panels. I designed a university which has not been built, and recyclable material. We have made the proposal of that. I don't think I get a chance in my lifetime to do that, but I think some of you may.
Yeah, that's beautiful. We have a lot of questions, but I think I wouldn't want to put you through too much more. We will send you some of these questions, and the office can help us answer some of them, and we can send it out as a written response if it's okay with you. But I'd certainly like to ask you this last question, which there is Anand and Amol, both I think Amol for sure is teaching in a college, who are talking about your message to students. And there are a lot of young architects here who are just setting out on their, architectural professional journey. So if you can just give your message as far as how they can, resolve struggles.
Architects as well.
How they can resolve their struggles. Sorry? You couldn't hear me?
I would like to say one thing to students and other architects who are involved. Please buy books. I think it's very important. I have learned so much from other people's books. So we have books, which is, let's say, as I said, Ramin's book. There is a book by Om Books on my work, earlier book. So if you go to, you will get a lot of.
You'll have to just hold your internet connection is a little unstable.
Can we close it now?
No. Which books were you referring to?
Hello? I missed you. Well, there is a book on our work called Innovative Architecture and Tradition.
Okay.
It's a book by Om Books. Yes, Innovative Architecture and Tradition. And there are, of course, 2 or 3 books in French. The French buy the books very quickly, so they are out of print. But we try one of them translated in English by Professor Tironi. I don't know if it's available. Then, of course, there's I mentioned Ramin Jahan Biglu's book. And then there is the earlier catalogs of our exhibitions are available. You can buy, that's a very reasonably priced, 500 rupees only. You can write to our office and they will give it. This is the catalog of the exhibition. Which was,
Sonam, you can maybe talk to Sir's office and see if we can host it on our ASEG bookstore as well. We have an online bookstore, sir, so maybe we can see if we can put it up there as well. I'll connect with your office and see if that's possible. So I think the simple message to most of the youngsters here is to learn by reading, seeing other people's work, and I guess
yes, also other people's work. I think there are very interesting books, theoretical books on. I mean, there is one of my favorite books is it's called Cities as Works of Art. I don't know if it's available easily here. Cities as works of art. Cities as a work of art.
Yeah.
Okay. It describes cities, 3 different cities. How? So I think considering how our cities are degenerating, I think it's a very important. We used to have beautiful cities, and we have. So that's I would like students to read some of these things. So with that, can I say goodbye?
Yes. I'm just going to say a little thank you here. I had promised you when we spoke, I think about 100 attendees. We've reached 400 attendees today, thanks to the person you are. I'd like to really thank you from the bottom of my heart for spending the kind of time you have with us. I think it's really, very spirited of you in these times to be there with us.
Okay.
The answers to the questions, if I may quickly give it, the cultural center that we were talking about in Paris, the answer is Pompidou Center, of course. The exhibition that architect Rewal curated was the traditional architecture of India for Festival of India in Paris. And of course, the red sandstone complex one was talking about is Fatehpur Sikri. The winners are, I'm sure they're here and I hope they're here, Sadhana Upendran and Shreya Bagaria. So our team will write to you.
And Shreyasi Thakral as well. So she's sent in just recently.
Okay, Shreyasi Thakral as well.
Yes, yes. And we've already sent out the emails. So
great, fantastic, fantastic.
So
We want to
thank you.
express our, yes.
I thank you from my side, and Aishwarya, yourself and all your colleagues and all the people who have been listening. So under these circumstances, it's tough. So you manage it very well. Thank you.
Our heartfelt gratitude for imparting absolute pearls of wisdom through a walkthrough of your inspiring projects. Gave us a valuable insights on the value of sustainability, lessons from the past, how they can be embedded into our current designs, using the tools of space, context, materiality, and structure to manifest the timeless rasa of spirit in architecture.